Act IV, Scene 1 opens in an isolated place. Thunder. Enter the three witches with a cauldron. They have assembled to meet with Macbeth and are about to begin making their preparations. Thrice the brindled cat hath mewed, thrice and once the hedge-pig whined. Harpier cries, "'Tis time, 'tis time." A brindled cat is a tabby or striped cat, and hedge-pig is another word for hedgehog. Harpier is presumably the name of the third witch's familiar. A familiar was either a small animal or an imp, kept by the witch as an attendant, which was either given to her by the devil or was inherited from another witch. If you remember, we found out in Act 1, Scene 1 that the first witch's familiar is a grey cat called Grey Malkin, while the second witch's is a toad named Paddock. There is no indication of what form the third witch's familiar takes. The noises made by these creatures are the signal the witches have been waiting for, and they begin an incantation around their cauldron. They take it in turns to throw in a number of unsavoury ingredients in order to cook up a potion, presumably to conjure up the apparitions who will deliver their prophecies to Macbeth. The first witch declares that they will be throwing in the poisoned entrails or innards of a number of creatures. The first ingredient is a toad that under cold stone days and nights has 31 sweltered venoms sleeping got. In other words, a toad who has sweated out poison which it has been incubating while asleep under a stone for a month. Note how Shakespeare writes the main part of the witch's speech in trochaic tetrameter catalectic, which is where the final unstressed syllable has been removed. Dum-dee, 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 dum. This creates a heavy rhythm, as the line ends on a stressed syllable as well as starting on one, e.g. thrice and once the hedge-pig whined. The refrain, however, is written in regular trochaic tetrameter. Dum-dee, 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 dum-dee. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire, burn and cauldron bubble. The lighter rhythm when the witches chant in unison serves to break up the heavier rhythm of their individual incantations and provides variety for the audience. The way in which Shakespeare gives the witches speech rhythms that are significantly different to those of the human characters in the play serves to underline how they are aberrant, otherworldly creatures. Note also how we are presented once more with the language of multiplication, characteristic of the witches, with the adverbs thrice and double. The second witch adds to the pot the fillet of a fenny snake, a snake from the fens, which are low and marshy areas of land, as well as eye of newt and toe of frog, wool of bat and tongue of dog, adder's fork and blindworm's sting, lizard's leg and howlet's wing, or the wing of a young owl. After they've all joined in with the refrain once more, the third witch adds her contribution. Scale of dragon, tooth of wolf, witch's mummy, moor and gulf of the ravined salt sea shark, root of hemlock, digged in the dark. Mummy or mummia here refers to a black resinous matter that seeped from embalmed Egyptian mummies, and the moor and gulf of the ravined salt sea shark refers to the stomach and throat of the ravenous shark, presumably stuffed with the putrefying remnants of its prey. Hemlock is a highly poisonous weed, and the fact that it is digged in the dark is evidence of the belief that plants harvested on a moonless night took on even more evil powers. This is joined by liver of blaspheming Jew, gall of goat and slips of yew, slivered in the moon's eclipse, nose of Turk and Tartar's lips. The body parts here, the liver, nose and lips, are all taken from people who were at the time considered infidels because they were not Christian, which would have been considered the height of evil. We mustn't forget that during this time, religion played an enormous role in the everyday lives of the nation. There was zero tolerance for people of other faiths, as the country was overwhelmingly Christian and nominally Protestant, meaning that practicing Catholics, Christians themselves, were even considered guilty of heresy, a crime punishable by death. Goats were considered lustful animals, and yew trees, which are poisonous, are commonly found in graveyards. Added to these is the finger of a birth-strangled babe, ditch-delivered by a drab. In other words, the finger of a baby who was strangled by its mother, a prostitute, just after she had given birth to it in a ditch. All of these ingredients are designed to give the potion a bit of body, to make the gruel thick and slab. And then a tiger's chaudron or entrails is thrown into the pot for good measure. There is yet another recitation of the refrain, which is then followed by the final touch, as it is cooled with a baboon's blood. Like the goat, the baboon was considered to be evil and lecherous. Note how Shakespeare exploits all the tropes relating to witchcraft that he can think of here, to create an atmosphere of pure supernatural evil designed to horrify and disgust the audience, while at the same time giving them an enjoyable frisson of fear. Hecate now enters, accompanied by the three other witches. Her speech, as with the whole of Act IV, Scene 5, is almost certainly not by Shakespeare, which we can tell from the reversion to sing-songy iambic tetrameter, ti-dum, 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 and the inferiority of the language. "Oh, well done, I commend your pains, and everyone shall share the gains." After another song they vanish, and the second witch announces the approach of Macbeth. "By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes. Open locks, whoever knocks." Macbeth greets them, addressing them as secret black and midnight hags. His language choice evidence of the extent of his descent into evil. He wastes no time in getting to the point of his visit to them. He is anxious for reassurance, and what he yearns for most is clarity. Things are looking bleak for him, as Malcolm is now in England seeking to raise an army, and he is rightfully fearful that the other thanes are plotting against him. His state of mind is made clear by the way in which he demonstrates his willingness to risk all the common dangers of witchcraft to the extent that it brings on the apocalypse, in order to gain the knowledge for which he is so desperate. "Though you untie the winds and let them fight against the churches, though the yeasty waves confound and swallow navigation up, though bladed corn be lodged and trees blown down, though castles topple on their warders' heads, though palaces and pyramids do slope their heads to their foundations, though the treasure of nature's germen tumble altogether, even till destruction sicken, answer me to what I ask you." Note Shakespeare's use of anaphora in this speech, with the repeated "though" at the beginning of each clause, to communicate Macbeth's determination to hear what the witches have to say. The witches seem uncharacteristically eager to accommodate him, already a bad sign that they have mischief in mind, and the way in which they are of one evil mind is communicated by the way they seamlessly share the same line of verse. Speak, demand, will answer. The first apparition, an armed head, appears, proclaiming, "Macbeth, Macbeth, Macbeth, beware Macduff, beware the Thane of Fife, dismiss me, enough." Macbeth misguidedly thanks it for its warning, as it has harped or guessed my fear aright. He tries to ask it something, but the first witch abruptly cuts him off, telling him, "He will not be commanded. Here's another, more potent than the first." There is thunder. Enter second apparition, a bloody child, which tells him, "Be bloody, bold, and resolute. Laugh to scorn the power of man, for none of woman born shall harm Macbeth." Macbeth's desperation for reassurance from the witches allows the equivocation of the apparitions they conjure to mislead him. Their pronouncements are deliberately ambiguous, and Macbeth interprets them in their most literal sense, or in a way that is beneficial to him. He is immediately comforted by the second apparition's pronouncement, deceiving himself into believing that he is invincible. "Then live, Macduff, what need I fear of thee?" Not thinking for even a moment that the apparition may be making use of the word born in its narrowest of senses, to describe a natural delivery via the mother's birth canal. He does, however, quickly change his mind, and wanting to make assurance doubly sure, that I may tell pale-hearted fear it lies and sleep in spite of thunder, he decides to take a belt and braces approach, resolving to kill him anyway. There is once more thunder. Enter third apparition, a child crowned with a tree in his hand. Macbeth is struck by its appearance, questioning, "What is this that rises like the issue of a king and wears upon his baby brow the round and top of sovereignty?" The third apparition proclaims, "Be lion-mettled, proud, and take no care who chafes, who frets, or where conspirers are. Macbeth shall never vanquished be until great Birnam Wood to high Dunsinane Hill shall come against him." Macbeth is so relieved at the apparent clarity of these prophecies that he does not seek to question them, dismissing the third apparition's description of a moving forest. Birnam Wood was about 12 miles from Dunsinane, as impossible. That will never be. Who can impress the forest, bid the tree unfix his earthbound root? Sweet boatmans, good. This is a good omen, he says, and is an indication that he will live a long life and die a natural death. Our high-placed Macbeth shall live the lease of nature, pay his breath to time and mortal custom. He is, however, desperate to know just one more thing. Shall Banquo's issue ever reign in this kingdom? The three witches half-heartedly advise him to seek to know no more, knowing full well that this will not be enough to deter him. They are right, and Macbeth turns on them, threatening them with an eternal curse if they deny him. The witches pretend that this threat is a very real and present one by giving in to his demand almost immediately. "Show his eyes and grieve his heart, come like shadows, so depart." Enter a show of 8 kings, and the last with a glass in his hand, Banquo's ghost following. Macbeth is appalled by what he sees. The first king is too like the spirit of Banquo. "Down, thy crown doth sear mine eyeballs, and thy hair, thou other gold-bound brow, is like the first. The third is like the former." He turns on the witches, clearly feeling that they have betrayed him in some form, even though he asked them to tell him in the first place. "Filthy hags, why do you show me this?" The parade of kings continues, with the 8th bearing a glass, or mirror, which shows me many more, and some I see that 2-fold balls and treble sceptres carry. In other words, the twin orbs of the English and Scottish crowns, and the 3 sceptres of England, Scotland, and Wales, signifying the de facto union of the kingdoms of England and Scotland created when King James VI of Scotland became King James I of England. It is highly likely that the mirror would have been used in the original performance to flatter the king by showing him his own reflection, as he was said to be a descendant of Banquo. When Macbeth questions the truth of what he has seen, the witches somewhat disingenuously ask him, "But why stands Macbeth so amazedly?" and to rub salt further into the wound, finish by doing a grotesque dance around him before vanishing. Lennox enters, and Macbeth, still astonished and dismayed by what he has just seen, asks him, "Saw you the weird sisters?" When Lennox answers in the negative, Macbeth bitterly dismisses them with his threatened, albeit useless, curse, "Infected be the air whereon they ride." Note the irony here as he damns all those that trust them, as that is exactly what he himself will go on to do, and that will be his own fate. He turns his attention to more worldly matters. Lennox announces that 2 or 3 messengers have come that bring you word Macduff is fled to England. Note the dramatic irony of Lennox's exchange with Macbeth here, as he addresses him as "my good lord," when we know full well from Act 3, Scene 6 that his true loyalties lie with the exiled Malcolm. Macbeth now realises that he is under pressure and that time is against him, as he mutters in an aside, "Time, thou anticipatest my dread exploits." Now that Macbeth is left to his own devices without the influence of his wife, he gives himself up totally to a futile attempt to preserve his life and his position. He promises himself that he will no longer procrastinate and wrestle with his conscience, as "the very firstlings of my heart shall be the firstlings of my hand." A firstling is another word for a firstborn, and indicates his intention that as soon as he feels he should do something, he'll go ahead and do it. To this end, he orders the deaths of the innocent Lady Macduff and her children, without so much as batting an eyelid. The castle of Macduff I will surprise, seize upon Fife, give to the edge of the sword his wife, his babes, and all unfortunate souls that trace him in his line. What he hopes to achieve by this is uncertain. Perhaps he plans that it will bring Macduff prematurely back to Scotland on a quest for personal revenge before he's been able to rally the support of the English armies. Even so, it seems to be an unnecessarily brutal act, the bloody consequences of which Macbeth is as yet unaware. They exit. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques, and English literature texts.